From a depressed town, he made his way to the big stage, becoming one of the richest and most influential musicians of our time. The path to success was challenging, but he wasn't afraid to take a risk and leave the band that made him a star. Sting is an English musician who gained fame as part of The Police, a songwriter, and a philanthropist. Why does he dislike his childhood? Why did he become a teacher? How did he deceive his wife and outsmart P. Diddy? You'll learn about all this and more in our video. Sting, how the main Englishman in New York lives. On October 2, 1951, in the port town of Wallsend in northern England, Gordon Matthew Thomas Sumner was born, later becoming known to the world by the stage name Sting. But more on that later. His mother, Audrey, was a hairdresser who later retrained as a nurse. She also had a connection to music. With a classical music education, she taught her son to play the piano. His father, Ernest Matthew Sumner, worked for many years as a mechanic at a local engineering factory. When he bought a small shop, he involved his son in the work. Together, they delivered milk in the mornings. Shortly after Gordon was born, 2 girls, Anita and Angela, and a boy, Phil, joined the family. The large family had to save money, and they could only afford basic food and clothing, which was passed down from the older children to the younger ones. Due to financial problems, the parents often quarreled. Sting speaks of his mother with admiration. She was a rare exotic bird, dangerous and unpredictable, trapped in the cage of domestic duties. I adore my mother, but I'm also afraid of her. This fear didn't come out of nowhere. In moments of emotional outburst, Audrey could throw whatever was at hand. Gordon speaks less emotionally about his father, as Sumner Sr. himself wasn't prone to showing feelings. However, it was his father whom the boy trusted to care for him. Even as a child, he understood that if his parents divorced, he would stay with him. He is an honest and brave man, firmly grounded in reality by his stoicism. Moreover, he never gave in to his wife's provocations and didn't respond to her outbursts. During his parents' arguments, Gordon would play the guitar to distract himself. The instrument had been given to him by a friend of his father who had emigrated, and the boy spent every spare moment learning chords. Seeing her son's passion for music, his mother enrolled him in lessons with a teacher. However, the teacher soon gave up, claiming that Gordon was unteachable. The truth was that the boy simply disliked academic studies and wanted to play his own songs. Besides music, the future artist loved reading books. He grew up as a dreamy child, and adventure novels like Treasure Island helped him escape from the reality around him. And there was plenty to escape from. Gordon was surrounded by a depressed town with a struggling shipyard, terrible environmental conditions, and drunken regulars wandering the streets. The primary colors of his childhood were black and gray. Black from the coal mine nearby and gray from the sea, which stayed that color even on clear days. I wouldn't want to go back to that past for anything in the world, the musician confessed. According to his memories, the only joys in the town were the days when a new ship built at the shipyard was launched into the sea. The townspeople would dress up and gather in the square where musicians invited for the celebration would play. To little Gordon, these musicians seemed like celestial beings living in some parallel universe. And once the boy even saw the Queen Mother. She was riding in a luxurious Rolls-Royce and even waved at him. This episode left an indelible impression on Gordon. He realized that he wanted a more glamorous life, but had no idea how to achieve it. From an early age, Sumner struggled with his studies, except perhaps in literature and choral singing. Gordon attended St. Cuthbert's Catholic School, known for its harsh disciplinary methods. One year, the future star was caned over 50 times, setting a kind of record for the school. Any hope that the boy might follow the teachings of the Catholic Church evaporated with each blow of the stick. His classmates weren't kind either and mocked Gordon by calling him Lurch from the Addams Family because of his height. The boy took these taunts to heart, distancing himself from his peers and retreating into books. He also excelled in sports, becoming the school champion in the 100-meter dash, taking second place in the English Athletics Championship, and playing on the soccer team. As a teenager, Gordon frequented nightclubs to watch rock bands perform, while at home he practiced singing and playing the guitar simultaneously. He also dated girls, often meeting them at the ruins of an ancient castle in the nearby town of Tynemouth, as bringing them home was out of the question. After finishing school in 1969, he enrolled at the University of Warwick in Coventry but dropped out after the first semester. He took various jobs to make ends meet, working as a bus conductor, a construction worker, and a tax inspector. In 1971, he enrolled in the Northern Counties College of Education, now known as Northumbria University. Music was still Gordon's cherished dream, but he couldn't imagine how to make a living from it, so he decided to become a teacher. After earning his diploma, he started working at St. Paul's First School in Cramlington, where he taught English. In the evenings, he performed jazz with various bands. It was during this time that he got the nickname that would become his stage name. His musician colleagues noticed that in his yellow and black sweater, Gordon resembled either a bee or a wasp, and they nicknamed him Sting. The name appealed to our hero. It was short and catchy. Additionally, the nickname became a sort of mask he could wear in public. However, Gordon had to literally buy the name as the wrestler Steve Borden was already using Sting as his moniker. Interestingly, the two Stings didn't meet until the 1990s because the musician's son was a fan of Borden. The nickname stuck so well that even his mother started calling him Sting. Though he remains Gordon on paper, he doesn't associate with the name at all. In an interview back in 1985, when a journalist called him Gordon, Sting quickly retorted, "My kids call me Sting, my mother calls me Sting. Who the hell is Gordon?" Over time, Sting didn't change his stance. In 2011, he said, "I've never been called Gordon. You could shout, 'Hey, Gordon,' on the street, and I'd just walk away." During that period, the aspiring artist was dating actress Frances Tomelty, and in 1976, they got married. Shortly after, their son Joseph was born, and in addition to motherhood and her work in theater, Frances helped her husband organize concerts. In January 1977, Sting moved to London, where he joined forces with Stuart Copeland and Henry Padavani to form the punk rock trio The Police. Initially, the band performed in London pubs and punk clubs and also toured as the opening act for other bands. Soon after, Andy Summers joined The Police and Padavani left. With this change, Sting began to emerge as a songwriter, and the band's material became more interesting, incorporating elements of reggae, synth pop, pop rock, and soul into their punk sound. The band members were desperately in need of money, so in 1978 they agreed to appear in a commercial for Wrigley's Spearmint Gum. They weren't bothered by the requirement to bleach their hair to match the bright white smiles in the ad. Although the commercial was filmed, it was never released, but the bleached hair became one of the Police's trademarks. The punk trio recorded their debut album on a tight budget, without a manager or a label contract, but it was still released in November 1978 under the title Outlandos d'Amour. The album received mixed reviews at first, but eventually came to be regarded as one of the strongest debuts. The most controversial song was Roxanne, which also caught the attention of A&M Records. The track was promoted with the slogan, "Banned by the BBC." Even though it wasn't actually banned, BBC simply didn't include it in their playlists. However, this marketing tactic and a re-release in the UK worked, and the supposedly banned single brought the Police their first taste of fame. Interestingly, the second single from the album, Can't Stand Losing You, was indeed banned by the BBC because of its cover art. By the age of 28, Sting had finally achieved his dream of becoming a famous artist. Despite the winding road to success, he has no regrets. "If I had succeeded right away, I wouldn't have been able to appreciate how happy I am now." All the jobs Sting had to take, the financial struggles, and even occasional hunger broadened his horizons and enriched his life experience. After the release of Regatta de Blanc in 1979, the Police embarked on a grueling tour across the U.S. The album topped the UK album chart, and the title track earned the band a Grammy Award for Best Rock Instrumental Performance. This success finally got the Police on BBC television, where they made their first TV appearance. Around the same time, Sting made his acting debut, starring in the musical dramas Quadrophenia and Radio On. In March 1980, the Police began their first world tour. Just weeks before, they recorded their third album, Zenyatta Mondata, which was released in October and earned the band several more Grammy Awards. In 1981, the band released their fourth album, Ghost in the Machine. Meanwhile, Sting moved to Ireland to save on taxes. His new surroundings influenced his songwriting, as seen in the track Invisible Sun, inspired by the 1981 hunger strikes by political prisoners in Belfast. Due to its political context, the song was banned from being aired on the BBC. After the album's release, the band took a break to pursue solo projects. Sting decided to further his acting career and starred in the 1982 thriller Brimstone and Treacle.
I thought she was the most exquisite being in the entire universe. And yes, oh yes, she will always be for me the girl all the songs sing about.
Interestingly, the role was initially offered to David Bowie and Malcolm McDowell, but they turned it down. Sting accepted but severely injured his hand while filming a scene where his character jumps out of a window. The film also sparked a wave of criticism due to a violent scene affecting its reception. During this time, Sting also began performing solo. His first solo appearance was at a benefit concert for Amnesty International. He soon became a prominent face of the organization and gained a reputation as a major philanthropist. However, a personal drama was unfolding in the musician's life. He openly admitted in interviews that he had been unfaithful to his wife. But everything changed when he met his charming neighbor, Trudy. Their relationship quickly developed into something more than just a fleeting affair. Sting was captivated by her blue eyes, full lips, and strong character. The complication? Trudy was a friend and colleague of his wife. In 1982, Sting's affair became public knowledge, leading to a media frenzy targeting Trudy Styler. She was labeled a homewrecker and struggled to land new acting roles. Meanwhile, on April 17th, Frances gave birth to their daughter Fuchsia Catherine, while Sting continued living with both women unable to make a choice. In 1983, the Police released their final studio album, Synchronicity, featuring the single Every Breath You Take. Sting wrote the song while staying at Ian Fleming's house in Jamaica, waking up in the middle of the night to pen what would become the biggest hit of his career. Officially recognized as the most played song on radio, this track alone earned Sting an average of $2,000 a day. There's an interesting story behind this song. Sean P. Diddy Combs used a sample from it for his track, I'll Be Missing You, without asking for permission, which allowed Sting to demand 100% of the royalties. Under normal circumstances, he would have received at most 50%. What's also intriguing is that Diddy actually sampled Andy Summers' guitar riff. However, since the Police's song credits only list one author, all the earnings go to Sting. The Synchronicity album hit number 1 in the UK and the band went on tour, but the tension within the group reached a breaking point. Despite their brother-like bond, the members still competed with each other. Sting wrote all the hits, but the other two members also tried to contribute their own songs, which weren't as strong. Sting's vetoes on these tracks only further irritated his bandmates. Despite his image as a philosopher intellectual, the band's frontman didn't always behave well. For instance, during a tour in Australia, Sting insulted an overly persistent customs officer, leading to his brief detention in a jail cell until the producer bailed him out. He was in and out of rehab, partied with questionable company, and got into fights. In fact, fights even broke out within the band, signaling that changes were imminent. On August 18, 1983, during the Police's performance at Shea Stadium in New York before 70,000 fans, Sting had an epiphany. They had reached the peak of their success and it was time to start his solo career. So, in 1984, he left the band at the height of its popularity, hired relatively unknown jazz musicians, and recorded his debut solo album, The Dream of the Blue Turtles, which was released in 1985. The most popular single from Sting's debut solo album was the track Russians, which expressed concerns about the threat of nuclear war. Sting was inspired to write this song after his friend intercepted Soviet children's television broadcasts. Although he couldn't recall the exact name of the shows, he was deeply moved by the atmosphere of care and love they conveyed.
I hope the Russians love their children too.
Even before the album's release, Sting participated in the Band-Aid project, which brought together stars from the UK and Ireland to raise money for famine relief in Ethiopia. He also continued to shine on the big screen. In 1984, David Lynch's Dune hit theaters featuring Sting as Fade Routha, a nephew of the villainous Baron Harkonnen.
Why prolong the inevitable? I will kill you!
Interestingly, the costume designers had to hastily create futuristic winged briefs for Sting to wear in a scene where he was supposed to appear nude. The producers worried that full nudity might negatively impact his music career, so they made sure to cover his private parts. Around that time, Sting finally decided to divorce his wife, especially since Trudy Styler had given birth to their daughter, Brigitte Michael, on January 19, 1984. The following May, they welcomed a son, Jake. Sting soon took on the role of Dr. Frankenstein in the horror film The Bride, where he even learned horseback riding and appeared in the drama Plenty. However, the story with the police wasn't entirely over. The band members reunited for charity concerts and even attempted to start working on a new album. But when Copeland broke his collarbone in a horse riding accident and was unable to play the drums, the attempt fell apart. Summers later admitted that the effort to make a new album was doomed from the start. Sting wasn't interested in writing new songs for the band, and Copeland's injury was the final straw. From that moment, the Police effectively disbanded. In 1987, Sting released his second solo album, Nothing Like the Sun, dedicated to his mother, Audrey, who had passed away the previous year. The album soared to the top of global charts and received numerous prestigious awards and nominations. Once again, Sting addressed contemporary issues that concerned him, this time focusing on civil wars and repression in Latin America. The album also featured the famous song Englishman in New York. It was a tribute to English writer Quentin Crisp and became a hit several years later thanks to a dance remix. Since then, Sting has re-recorded Englishman in New York several times, and it has become one of his signature songs.
I'm an Englishman in New York.
In 1987, Sting appeared in the Italian drama Julia and Julia, and a year later in the thriller Stormy Monday and the adventure film The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Around this time, he and his girlfriend Trudy founded the Rainforest Foundation, and in 1990 they welcomed their daughter Elliot into the world. Sting's next album, The Soul Cages, released in 1991, was dedicated to his late father. After his father's death, Sting struggled to write music for several years, but he eventually overcame this creative block, finding solace in music that helped him cope with the loss. The album frequently references the sea, as Sumner Sr. had always dreamed of being a sailor. In 1992, Sting and Trudy, at the request of their older children, officially married, and the following year, Sting released his fourth album, 10 Summoner's Tales. Around this time, he also lent his voice to characters in several animated projects, including The Simpsons. 3 years later, in 1995, Sting appeared on screen again in the film The Grotesque, but critics harshly criticized his performance. However, he wasn't too upset, as he acts in films purely for fun. His real work is music. Interestingly, because of his deep connection to music, Sting finds it difficult to simply enjoy musical pieces without analyzing them, especially his own songs. However, he does have a favorite genre: jazz. Also in 1995, Sting and Trudy had a son, Giacomo, after which the couple purchased a 16th century villa in Tuscany. Over time, Sting became interested in winemaking and even began selling his wines, which received high praise from experts. Additionally, the family produces olive oil, cheese, honey, and grows their own vegetables. In February 1996, Sting released his fifth album, Mercury Falling, though it did not match the success of its predecessors. Afterward, he began working on the soundtrack for the Disney animated film The Emperor's New Groove. However, when the studio decided to turn the film into a comedy, they cut 6 of his songs for being too dramatic. Sting also had to argue with the studio over a plot point where the main character destroys a large portion of the rainforest. In this matter, Disney relented to Sting and changed the plot, leaving just 2 of his songs in the film, which earned him nominations for an Oscar and a Golden Globe. In 1998, the crime film Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, directed by Guy Ritchie, premiered a project made possible by Sting's wife, Trudy Styler. Trudy owned a production company and became interested in Ritchie's short film, The Hard Case. She not only financed his debut feature film, but also persuaded Sting to take a role in it. Sting played the role of Eddie's father. Interestingly, it was Sting who introduced Guy Ritchie to Madonna, and he is the godfather of their son, Rocco.
Remember, you do have the luxurious advantage of being able to sustain your son's life.
And you do have a reputation. So I'll choose my words very carefully. You tell Harry to go f*** himself.
In 1999, Sting was nominated for a Golden Globe for the soundtrack to the film The Mighty, and he also released Brand New Day, his sixth solo album. The album featured the hit title track and the song Desert Rose, which was recorded with Algerian singer Cheb Mami. Around that time, Sting planned a U.S. tour called Desert Roses and Arabian Rhythms, featuring musicians from Egypt, Algeria, and Iran. The tour was set to begin on September 14, 2001, but was canceled at the last minute. In 2002, Sting won a Golden Globe and received an Oscar nomination for the song Until from the film Kate and Leopold. The following year, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Police and was also awarded the Order of the British Empire. Additionally, in 2003, Sting released another album, Sacred Love, along with his autobiography, Broken Music. Writing the memoir brought back a flood of memories, leading him into a depression that lasted more than 2 years. A year later, in 2004, he was again nominated for an Oscar and a Golden Globe for his song in the film Cold Mountain. In 2006, Sting released his 8th studio album, Songs from the Labyrinth.
Sweet love doth now invite.
Though it was not a commercial success, it was intended more as a creative experiment. The album featured music by 16th century British composer John Dowland and a song by his contemporary Robert Johnson. In 2007, Sting voiced a character in the animated film B-Movie and reunited with his former bandmates from the Police to perform at the Grammy Awards and embark on a world tour. Interestingly, tickets for the UK leg of the tour sold out in just 30 minutes. In 2009, Sting returned to the studio to record a solo album, which was released in the fall under the title If on a Winter's Night. This album is a collection of Christmas and winter-themed songs.
A pretty babe, all burning bright, did in the air appear.
While recording, Sting collaborated with dozens of jazz, folk, and classical musicians. Shortly after, Sting found himself in an uncomfortable situation. He performed in Uzbekistan, believing that the event was organized by UNICEF. However, it turned out that his fee came from the country's government, and President Islam Karimov was accused of human rights violations. UNICEF had no involvement with Sting's performance whatsoever. Sting then went on tour before starting work on the musical The Last Ship. The production took several years and the show premiered in Chicago in 2014. A year earlier, an album of the same name was released. The musical tells the story of the decline of the shipbuilding industry in Newcastle during the 1980s, with Sting himself appearing on stage in some performances. In 2016, Sting released his first rock album in many years titled 57th and 9th, named after a street corner in New York City. The album included the song The Empty Chair, which was featured in the documentary Jim, the James Foley Story, and earned Sting yet another Oscar nomination. That same year, he appeared in the comedy Zoolander 2 and embarked on a world tour. Sting's 14th album, My Songs, was released on May 24, 2019, though it didn't feature any new material, only re-recorded hits. However, for his next album, The Bridge, he wrote new compositions, which received praise from critics.
Some of us the bridge.
Sting was originally slated to make a cameo in the new Dune film, but he had to decline due to his involvement in the 2021 fantasy movie Camelot: Return of the King. That same year, he appeared in 2 episodes of the TV series Only Murders in the Building. In February 2022, it was announced that Universal Music Group had acquired the catalog of Sting's solo works and the Police's music. While the official amount was not disclosed, Forbes named him the highest-paid solo musician of 2022, with an estimated income of $210 million. Other sources suggested the deal was worth $300 million. Sting is known for his active civic engagement and doesn't shy away from important issues. After Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, he called for an end to the war and has shown his support for the Ukrainian people during his concerts. In 2023, one of Sting's performances sparked public criticism, this time at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he played for Microsoft executives. The next day, the company announced layoffs of 10,000 employees, leading many to feel that a paid concert by a star was poorly timed. Meanwhile, moviegoers saw Sting playing himself in the comedy The Book of Solutions. Since his 40s, yoga and meditation have been integral parts of Sting's life, helping him maintain mental balance and stay in good shape. He follows a special diet, avoiding processed foods and preservatives, and has reduced his intake of dairy and meat products. While on tour, he travels with a personal chef, although he occasionally indulges in ice cream, chocolate, and a glass of his own wine. Sting is a passionate supporter of Newcastle United and an excellent chess player. He once had the opportunity to play an exhibition match against his idol Garry Kasparov, but as expected, Sting lost. Interestingly, Sting served as the inspiration for John Constantine in the DC Comics series. He was flattered by this and read all 300-plus issues. For the character's 30th anniversary, he wrote the foreword to the special edition and even congratulated Constantine on Twitter. The musician, who has transformed from an unfaithful husband into an exemplary spouse and loving father, has made every effort to ensure that his 2 older children and 4 younger ones get along. His eldest son, Joseph, followed in his father's footsteps and became a musician, with a voice strikingly similar to Sting's. Sting gifted his youngest daughter, Elliot, his first bass guitar, so it's no surprise that she, too, began pursuing a music career. The other children he has with Trudy chose different paths. Jake is a producer, Bridget, known professionally as Mickey, is an actress, and Giacomo leads a private life, having earned a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. Interestingly, Sting's children won't inherit his fortune. He doesn't want to leave them trust funds, believing they should earn their own way in life. Moreover, Sting has significant financial commitments, mainly to charitable organizations. All of his heirs respect their father's stance and rarely ask him for anything. Sting's net worth is estimated at $550 million. His most profitable album is thought to be Synchronicity, the last one he recorded with the Police, which reportedly earned him nearly $9 million. Sting doesn't collaborate with commercial brands, preferring to focus on charitable projects. For example, in 2021, he voiced a video in honor of World Down Syndrome Day. However, there is one notable exception. His music video for Desert Rose is essentially an advertisement for the Jaguar S-Type sedan. There are 2 theories about this. One suggests the video was originally made for Jaguar, while the other claims the completed video was sent to the car company afterward. Sting and Trudy own a $7 million estate by a lake in Wiltshire, England. They purchased it in 1990 and have lived there ever since. Their villa in Tuscany, where Sting pursues winemaking, serves as their summer retreat. The couple renovated the house and occasionally rents it out. They also rent out their Malibu home for $200,000 a month, which features a waterfall, a pool, and a terrace with an ocean view. Sting previously owned several homes in London, including one near Buckingham Palace that he put up for sale. The couple also had a 2-story penthouse in New York City, which they bought in 2008 for $27 million and sold in 2017 for $50 million. The master bedroom offered a view of Central Park, making the address one of the most prestigious in the world. Shortly after selling that penthouse, Sting purchased another one nearby for $66 million. Sting prefers eco-friendly transportation and once arrived at the Oscars in a hybrid Toyota Prius. However, it's also rumored that he owns a Porsche 911 and a Cadillac Escalade. Share in the comments which Sting song is your favorite.